This is one of these prompts that sounded really fun in my head, but when I sat down to think about it, I couldn't come up with anything. There are characters out there that I sometimes see and I'm like, oh yeah, I do exactly that. But it usually only applies to a few of their actions and not much more. I've had friends tell me that I'm a love child of certain two characters because I have traits from both of them. Depending on a friend, these two characters obviously vary. It's fun to think about, and sometimes I actually do end up agreeing with them, but this challenge isn't about drawing love child OCs, it's about fan art of the characters that already exist. I was so traumatized after the shoujo surge from day 3, so I did the only thing I could think of and I messaged a friend, and I was not disappointed. I feel like not many people know this show, let alone remember this character by name, but when my friend replied to me with this, I was like, I could see why you did that. In case you're one of these people that don't know, it's Yukimura from Haru Machine Gun, an anime manga series from the last decade, so it's fairly recent. The manga is already concluded and has 18 volumes, all of them are available in English print, and there's an anime adaptation as well, but it only got one season and I think one OVA. As a side note, I actually did own all the manga volumes in English at some point, but over the last 4 years I've moved apartments twice, and every time I move I try to cut down on the stuff I own, because moving is both expensive and exhausting. Haru was among the series that I was, once upon a time, fond enough of that I bought the physical volumes, but as time passed, I decided to rehome them to save space and reduce the number of boxes I would need to move all by myself because I never hire anyone to do it for me. Which isn't to say I stopped enjoying the series. I will most likely track down all the Japanese print edition when I settle in a more permanent living situation, hopefully within the next 2 years, but that's for the future me. The manga was created by Naoe-sensei, who is now working on another series, Tokyo Aliens. So a little about the actual story, I'll just read the synopsis from Mal because it pretty much sums it up well enough. And it goes like this. High school student council president Hotaru Tachibana, a girl often confused as a boy due to her speech pattern clothing, is not afraid to fight against injustice. When her friend is supposedly swindled by a host, Hotaru feels compelled to confront the man responsible. He turns out to be her next-door neighbor of Masamune Matsuoka, who decides that the best way to settle this is to play a survival game. An imaginary war game where fake guns are used but the battles are no less real. I guess they didn't just say airsoft because not everyone would know what it is. Anyway, let's continue. Despite Hotaru's best efforts, she ends up losing and incurring a large debt due to the resulting damages. Consequently, she is forced to become the third member of Masamune's male-only team Toy Gun, joining his friend, Toru Yukimura, an author of adult manga who dislikes her at first. However, before she even notices it, Hotaru becomes genuinely fond of both the sport and her team members. She chooses to share in their dream of becoming the best survival game in Japan and winning the famous tournament, Top Combat Game, even if that means hiding her identity as a girl from her teammates. And yeah, that's it. There's slightly more to it later down the line, but that's the case with pretty much every series out there. I actually discovered this manga when it was just about to finish. It was right after I moved to the UK and had this very weeb habit of just strolling around bookstores and anime stores and looking at all the manga they're releasing, even if I can't really buy them all. I still do that sometimes, but not as often anymore since London is a bit too far away from me right now. And back then, I may have been a fresher at university with barely any money that I could spend on anything other than my rent and bills, but every once in a while, when I would save up enough from my part-time jobs and when there would be some sort of sale going on, I would let myself indulge a little. It's a mental health thing, like adding to cart online when we're feeling sad. By the way, this isn't advice, this is a joke, don't do that. And this one time there was a 3-for-2 sale going on at this second-hand store that my friend dragged me to, and they had manga as well. That's how I very randomly picked up the first volume of Haru, and it all went from there like that. I did read it online before I bought the volumes, but like I said, the story was entertaining enough and the art style was so good, I actually felt the need to own physical copies as well. I may not have them with me anymore, but I don't regret buying them. I enjoyed owning them while it lasted, and I hope I will get them back one day. Also, my personal story with the anime is also kind of funny, at least to me. So, 5 or 6 years ago, right after I read the manga up to whatever chapter it was at the time, it was almost finished by then, but not quite yet. So after I read it, as any self-respecting weeb, I went and googled if there is an anime adaptation. And there was, from 2015. Great, I thought. Only, for some reason, I never ended up watching it at the time. I actually do have memories of me searching it up, and now that I think about it, I was really stupid for it. So what happened was that I searched for it on the old Crunchyroll website, which is the same website but more ugly back then, and I saw the promotional poster they had for it and the preview of the first few episodes, which I guess were just some random screenshots, and I may be remembering it wrong, but I just think back then they literally picked the worst promotional poster they could for it, because I remember thinking, this doesn't look appealing. And I don't want to sound like a picky watcher, because I really am not. I watch way too many trashy shows to be picky, but at the same time, I was right after having read the manga, and let me tell you, some of the panels there go really hard. The poster I saw wasn't bad by any means, it was just plain, and not only did I have expectations for the show itself, I also had lectures and coursework and seminars and my part-time jobs, and so I skipped on it without even trying the first episode. I just watched something else instead. Now, fast forward to September 2022. And yes, I know exactly the month, the year, and even the day of when this happened, because a pretty big thing happened in the UK at the exact same time. So, we're barely out of the big war thing that happened, and my friend can finally come visit me for the first time. So we do all the catching up and some touristy things during the day, but then the evening comes. And what else can two weebs do if not watch anime together? There was only one problem. I had been a weeb for most part of my life at the time, while my friend was a freshly baked one, 2 years of experience max. I told him I didn't mind rewatching something I had already watched, especially if it meant getting him to watch something I knew I liked. But no, he wanted us to watch something we both hadn't seen yet. After a lot, and I mean a lot, of scrolling Crunchyroll, I spotted Aoharu on the list and was like, you wanna? Because I remembered that I had already given up on it once, without trying. I wasn't expecting much of it, but you know how it is. Worst case scenario, we go back and pick something else. And we didn't. Oh boy, did we not go back. The second the first episode ended was the most awkward silence I had ever experienced with this friend ever in my life. Because we're sitting there. I'm not saying anything. He's not saying anything yet. The screen is loading for the next episode. And then he goes, so why did you drop it? And I didn't know. I'm not gonna say this anime was exceptional, but it was not bad. It was good. Some parts were better than good. It was so entertaining, we ended up binging the entire thing in one sitting. And if this doesn't prove that I am, in fact, an idiot, I don't know what else will. Oh, and I kind of feel the need to explain very quickly why I'm drawing Yukimura for this day. Character-wise, we're not actually that similar. It's once again the case where sometimes he does things that I would do, but only sometimes. But he has some great panels in the manga that are either funny or relatable or both. And I used to use the screenshots of them as reaction pics when messaging with my friends when I was reading it, and for a while after that as well. I still have some of them saved on my phone to this day. And the friend that I asked for opinions was one of the victims of that. So it's more of a situation where he thinks of me when he sees that character, because I kept using the panels of him, which, by the way, I do with more characters than just Yukimura from many series, or I used to, because my friends are slowly getting to a point in their lives where my conversations with them are drifting away from anime, and so I also tend to use less anime manga references, which is just the way of life, I guess, even though I can't personally relate to them. One of the purposes of this channel is for me to yap about anime and manga, because I still need to do that, even if my friends are trying to be adults now for whatever reason. One last fun fact before I go. I actually had a classmate back in high school who was into airsoft as well. So when, after graduating, I picked up this manga, I suddenly had this, oh, that is what it was all about realization. Good times, good times. And with that all said, day 5 is done, and I know it can be just me, but he's looking good here, isn't he? I think he is.